Hello everyone. So the fermented food I'm gonna talk about today has been considered as a side dish for nearly every Korean meal. Now I'm sure some of you guys have already guessed what I'm gonna talk about today, which is kimchi. Now instead of standing here talking about things I find from Wikipedia, I actually divide this video into 4 parts. Now for the first 2 parts, I'm gonna show you guys how to make your own kimchi at home. As for the third part, I'm gonna talk about some microbiological activities happens during the fermentation of kimchi. And for the last part, I'm gonna show you an example of undesirable results you might get during the process of fermentation, and so that you could avoid it when you make your own kimchi at home. Now let's move to the first part. For the first part, we are going to prepare the ingredients we need to make kimchi. Actually, there are 200 existing types of kimchi. Each of them has a different recipe and requires different ingredients. What we are going to make today will be the most iconic Napa cabbage kimchi. Okay, so first I'm gonna grab all the ingredients I'm gonna use. Here are the ingredients we're gonna use for this fantastic fermenting journey. We got half Napa cabbage, a bunch of green onion, a bag of carrots, a daikon, a piece of ginger, some garlic. We got Korean chili pepper flake, got some salt, and fish sauce. Moving on to the second part, I'm actually gonna show you how to make kimchi step by step. Step number 1, we're gonna cut the bottom of the Napa cabbage. Let's get rid of that. And we're gonna cut the rest of them into strips. Step 2, put all the strips into a large bowl and season it heavily with salt while squeezing and mixing. After that, wait for several hours. Now the reason we do this is to remove excess water in the cabbage to decrease its water availability as well as kill unwanted bacteria with salt. And we can prepare other vegetables while waiting. Cut the carrot into strips. Cut the daikon into thicker strips compared to the carrot. Peel a ginger and cut it into puree. Peel several cloves of garlic and cut it into puree as well. Moving on to step 4. Add roughly 50 grams of Korean red pepper flake and 60 milliliters of fish sauce into the bowl and mix them with a puree of garlic and ginger. This is how it looks like. We'll save it for later use. After waiting for 1.5 hours, this is how our Napa cabbage looks like. Listen how squishy it is. Ah, so much fun. And for the next step, we're gonna move the Napa cabbage to the sink and rinse it with water to just remove all the excess salt we got before. And after we finish all that, we're just gonna mix everything together. Or carrots and daikon. Try to make all the ingredients evenly spread out and thoroughly mixed. And there we go, our perfectly clean jar. Oh, by the way, if you're doing this, highly recommend you use a glove, because I could already feel the spice burning my hands. When packing is finished, use a stick or whatever tool you like to press the kimchi down in order to remove air bubbles in between and try to create an anaerobic environment for bacteria. Finally, close the lid and wait for 4 to 7 days. Usually 2 to 6 degrees are considered to be the optimal temperature for kimchi fermentation, but you could also choose to put it under room temperature, which is around 18 to 20 degrees, to accelerate the speed of fermentation. Me personally choose to put it into my fridge, which is about 4 degrees. For part 3, I'm going to explain the microbiological activities happens during the fermentation of kimchi. So what is fermentation? Fermentation is a metabolic process which happens under anaerobic environment. During the process of fermentation, various compounds like lactic and acetic acids, carbon dioxide, vitamins, amino acids, and prebiotics are produced by lactic acid bacteria, which are naturally exist in vegetables. These compounds produced by lactic acid bacteria will contribute to the variation of taste and sensory qualities of kimchi. Lucnostoc, Lactobacillus, and Bacilli are three genera of lactic acid bacteria which play crucial roles during the process of spontaneous fermentation of kimchi. Lucnostoc such as Lucnostoc citrium, which has less acid tolerance, is commonly predominant at the early stage of fermentation. As the fermentation carries on, the LAB produce more organic acid from the carbohydrates and make the environment become more acidic. At this point, the LAB community was quickly dominated by Lactobacillus and Bacilli due to their higher acid tolerance. The number of microbes keep increasing during the fermentation process. After 20 days of fermentation, the pH value and free sugar level becomes relatively stable. After that, the abundance of bacteria will gradually reduce. Part 4. In this part, I'm going to talk about an undesirable result of kimchi and how to prevent it. Similar to LAB, yeast can also survive the high salt content in the preparation stage. They also contribute to kimchi production. The yeast population stays relatively stable until the fermentation is almost completed by LAB. The number of yeast will increase significantly at that point. Once the yeast has multiplied to a concentration greater than 6.6 log CFU per gram of kimchi, the white colony forming yeast appears on the surface of kimchi. This can lead to negative effects like package swelling, unpleasant odor, and texture softening. To avoid this undesirable situation, immersing the surface with kimchi soup can be a solution. Because yeast are facultative anaerobic, which means they can survive both aerobic and anaerobic conditions, but they prefer to live in an aerobic environment. Therefore, once the surface is not exposed to air, the chance of getting white colony forming yeast will decrease. Another tip is to store the kimchi under 4 degrees to slow down the growth of yeast. Furthermore, observe the kimchi more frequently so that when anything goes wrong, you can immediately notice and prevent any potential undesirable result at early stage. And yeah, that's all for today's video. I hope you learned something new about kimchi. And if you find this video useful, please share it with your friends and family. And yeah, that's it. Peace.